You can rent a half-day boat where you can see just a few of the islands, or a full day where you can get an extensive tour. The costs are 800 and 1400 pesos respectively. You can also spend the night on the largest of the islands and have someone pick you up the next day. I opted for the shorter trip. As you approach the islands, you get a feel for the sense of peace that exists here. After a short hike up to, what was it, 123 steps?
Yes, sir.
There's 123 steps up the short hike on Governor's Island, and that's symbolic because that's how many islands are actually here. There's 123 islands in the 100 Islands National Park, and if you pan through, you can see just what those islands look like. They're eroding away, so they're falling off in huge chunks and being basically melted into the sea. And oddly enough, that actually helps the numbers. This island that we're standing on now used to be 2, and in the center of this island, you know, obviously the area was eroded away, making this 2 islands. So kind of a bittersweet victory for the numbers. Governor's Island Cave. For you die-hard guano fans out there, this is not your cave. The bigger caves are on a more expensive tour. So being not only cheap but in a hurry, I figured it was best to get some photos and save the hottest part of the day for the air-conditioned bus. This looks like it's Children's Cave. After Governor's Island, the second island on the trip is Children's Island. It's called Children's Island because of the year-round shallow pool that exists here. Because of how close it is to its first neighbor, even in high tide, there's a wading pool abutting the docking station. Small boats and foot traffic are the only things getting through here. It averages 3 to 4 feet. Sediment from erosion also helps keep a constant floor close to the water's surface. It's an interesting battle between real estate on the islands and the ocean that's taking it. The runoff creates a beautiful aspect to the islands, but it costs them so much in return. It also boasts some interesting highlights, like this giant oyster farm. On September 28, just a few months ago, a huge tropical cyclone, Typhoon Nisat, rocked this area, destroying coral and flooding outlying areas all the way to Manila and costing 24 lives. Protective barriers like this one were built in response. Generally, Filipinos are doing what they can to preserve the biological and geological resources here. So even if you see littering, don't join in. The guides are also paid very little for their services, so if they do a good job, a tip of at least 100 pesos is appreciated. In leaving the 100 Islands, I was happy to have seen this beautiful area, but I was definitely ready for some mountains. So I returned to town to catch a bus and headed for Ifugao. On the way, I wanted to stop over in Bontoc. It's a neat little town that hosts the annual tribal gathering from all over the region. It's the cultural center for the surrounding tribal areas. There's even a museum dedicated to the tribal history here. Along the roadway, though, there are some spectacular places to stop off and check out the amazing scenery. Well, right now we're in an area called Payu. And this is an example of another one of the terraced rice fields. And today we've come down from Banaue, and we're on our way to Bontoc. And Bontoc is going to be another area where I think I'm going to try and find a room tonight, and then continue on to Sagada. Sagada is pretty popular in the New Year's and Christmas time, so pretty sure all the rooms have been booked up. We're stopping in infrequent places that look a lot like this, and there's a whole lot to this place that a lot of tourists I don't think really get to see. The waterfall and the river and stuff that's down here is really something. As soon as you get out of the U.S., safety procedure and protocol goes pretty much right out the window, and you can ride almost any way you want, including this way, which is on top. Currently riding a Geek through what is becoming more and more sparsely populated mountain territory inside the center of North Luzon in the Philippines. And we're headed to a place called Lagawe. Lagawe is in Ifugao province. I continued on and made it through several smaller towns. Life in these smaller towns is really quiet and slow compared to the bigger cities, and at the same time, surprisingly active by Western standards. No matter where I stopped along the way, all of the small towns were very different from one another. There are very few things that link all of these places together, but one of the undoubted links is betel nut. What are you selling here?
Tobacco.
Tobacco?
Yeah, that's tobacco.
They make cigars or cigarettes out of these?
Oh, you can make cigars out of that.
Yeah?
And then you can use that for this, to complete this one, betel nut.
What is this?
Betel nut.
Oh,
there's the betel nut, that's the leaves, and then the tobacco.
And you chew that?
Yeah.
It's a red, fibrous substance which, when mixed with tobacco and other substances, makes you high. The downside is its teeth-rotting qualities. And of course the endless legion of stoned Filipinos hucking huge snot-filled red chunks all over the ground. Pushing on, I had a quick stopover in Langawi. So we just arrived in town in Langawi. Langawi is one of the carving capitals of Philippines. They have all this wood all over the place. On the way up here, they were making some really amazing sculptures. You can see them all on the side of the road and everything. So we're just gonna walk around the square a little bit, hopefully get some footage of all the buildings and stuff, and go catch another Jeep up to Panawe. More and more, I was getting to really like riding in these Jeeps. Besides the immediate and inescapable thrust into a real Filipino pastime, not to mention the impossibly cheap transportation, I keep meeting these amazing and friendly characters who want nothing more than to share insights into their lives.
Yes.
You come down every day?
No. Just say once a week or once a month.
Once a week or once a month. And so you bring back a lot of supplies?
Yes.
John went on to tell me that he owned a small shop on a small parcel of land which also offered subsistence crops throughout the year. His lifestyle, he says, is not uncommon. Many people live far up in the mountains and simply work to get their children through school. You have to pay for school?
Yeah.
Yeah. How much is school for your children?
About say for the high school, about say, I don't know, about say, about five for the 1 year.
5,000 pesos for 1 year?
Yeah.
And do they have Western teachers in the schools here?
No, they don't have.
Just
Local teachers.
Yeah. What is the most difficult thing for foreign people to understand about the Philippines?
I don't know many.
Many things.
Many.
Joe went on to tell about the many things that create a deep cultural gulf between the Philippines and the rest of the world. This not only spoke to his level of national pride in the Philippines, but his breadth of knowledge of the world outside it. Interestingly, he admits that English is becoming less and less a part of the Philippines ever since the U.S. troops pulled out in 1991 from having had bases here since 1945. The English is spoken everywhere we go. I've not had any problem talking to the local people because everybody speaks such good English. Is that, do you like that, or do you think that you should have more nationality who speak Tagalog or the local languages?
I think now the national language now is, I think, gaining importance here.
Yeah.
And for example, the young ones now, they understand more Tagalog than English.
Yeah.
Not like the old ones, because they were used English before.
Yeah.
They understand also English.
So it's moving away from English.
Yes, a little bit.
Joe's perspective on things was great. I was happy to see that the Philippines as a nation is coming away from American influence. I think we've exported enough hip-hop for Asia already. Now it's off to study up on Joe's ancestors, the headhunters.
And the priests, these priests, they themselves, they composed their own songs.
Once in town, I headed immediately for the museum in hopes of talking to someone about the headhunters. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to film inside, but the lady allowed us to film outside.
The ulalim is the chatting up, the kalinga.